Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra is a fantastic phone. Undisputed. Best phone I think Samsung's ever made, but it's still only good enough for fifth place whenever it comes to global sales. So I was looking at some metrics this morning, and it's interesting to me. I mean, I would have thought that it probably would have placed a little bit higher, but no. Well, I mean, it's still king of Android. It got number one sales out of basically all the Android phones globally, but still got outbeat by the iPhone 14 Pro Max, which basically sold like 3 times as many phones. The iPhone 14 beat it. The iPhone 14 Pro beat it. And even last year's iPhone 13, even being over a year old, year and a half old, still selling more phones than the S23 Ultra. And is this something that is problematic? Well, yes and no. Because when you take a look at global market share, Samsung actually beats out Apple by like 1%. But Apple has been growing, especially they've gotten to more markets. And in the US, the Apple iPhones have a staggering sharehold over the Samsung phones. It's not even close. So basically, in the United States, I'm trying to remember this, it's like 57% of the market share that Apple has. So they have almost 60% of the sales of smartphones in the United States, and Samsung's at like 29%. So there's like a 27%, hopefully I'm doing my math right, a difference in the United States, but globally, Samsung still sells more. But as Apple continues to permeate and spread around the globe and get into more markets and they have more affordable options, we'll probably see that replaced too. And does that mean that one day everybody's going to be using an iPhone? Well, no, I don't think so, because people still like choice. And ultimately, most people typically buy Android phones because they don't like iPhones. Yes, believe it or not, everybody doesn't love iPhone. But also, everybody doesn't love Android or Samsung. So it's great that Samsung still makes these fantastic phones. It's great that we get this. And one thing that people really like whenever it comes to the Samsung phones is they always incorporate more of the latest and greatest. They typically have more features. They have come up with more cool things. Not so much as they used to. Samsung, I think, used to deliver more like cool, groundbreaking things. I think they've kind of settled in and not doing as much courageous stuff anymore. And a lot of that has to do with they're doing more experimental stuff on the foldable front. Now, Samsung is definitely king of the foldables department. And whenever it comes to this fall, we're looking for some great stuff with the Flip 5, because if you've seen the leaked renders and stuff like that, basically the whole front part of it is a huge screen, and it should be usable, I would hope, because Motorola's new phone is about to come out in just a few days, and the whole front part of the screen is going to be usable, and it's pretty glorious looking. So lots of cool things on the Android front, and that's one of the biggest things I think that keeps Android in as high as the market share and as much as people like them, as opposed to Apple. A lot of the complaints you get about Apple is the same old, it's boring, it feels like the same phone I've been using for 10 years. And some people like that. There's definitely value in that. I mean, there's something nice about nothing really changing. You know where everything's at, you know how it works, and a lot of the things and the benefits you get out of Apple really have to come into like the ecosphere and a lot of the services stuff. So Samsung hasn't quite cracked that nut. Maybe they will one day. Maybe we'll get something revolutionary with like the Tab S9 series that's going to come out later. Of course, the foldables are still cool. And here in the United States, I mean, yeah, the Pixel Fold is going to be here in a month, but we've still got 4 generations of the Fold already, right? So they're pretty permeated within the market, and the foldable phones that Samsung make are pretty darn good. They're reliable, and the prices just keep getting lower. So we'll see what happens this fall with that. But I thought it was interesting because I would have thought that the S23 Ultra would at least, beat out the iPhone 13, right? You would think, but no. But the iPhone 13 is a good phone. And the 13 series, great phone. I mean, the 14 Plus just trails right behind the S23 Ultra. And it's funny because so many people said the 14 Plus is a failure. Well, even at a failure, it's good enough for 6th place, and it's right behind the S23 Ultra. So is the S23 Ultra a failure? No, I don't think it is. But you have to look at market conditions, upgrade cycles, pricing, things like that. And ultimately, if you look at the iPhone 14 Pro Max, it's $1099 versus the $1199 S23 Ultra. And then you look at the iPhone 14 Pro, it's $999. It's $200 cheaper than the S23 Ultra. So maybe if we got a $1099 price for the S24 Ultra next year, maybe that would maybe that would spark sales a little bit more. These phones are really expensive. And it's really premium. I mean, it's super premium phone. It's great. All these great things going for it. I mean, undisputably, it is a super high-end premium flagship phone. And apparently, this is there was like almost 5% growth in they call it the premium phone sector, which is over $500 phones, which is funny because that's kind of what we call mid-range, around $500. Most of the flagship premium, we kind of associate that with around like the $700, $800, $900 phone market. But the prices of phones keep getting more expensive. So I think that's what's driving that up. Not so much the top end, but that middle line where things used to be a little bit cheaper is finally getting up a little bit higher. So overall, moral of the story is the S23 Ultra is a fantastic phone. It's leading the pack. I mean, if you take a look across all the other phone manufacturers and brands globally, this one right here, the Ultra series, I think that it has a lot going for it. And I like this phone. I think they've done a fantastic job with it. Of course, I've said many times before that the S23 Ultra is the best phone that Samsung's ever made. And they cleaned up all the problems and the issues I had with the S22 Ultra last year, which were, of course, the heat issues and the battery life issues. The battery life really being the biggest thing. Battery life for me on the S22 Ultra was terrible. Of course, attributable to the Snapdragon 8 Generation 1, which basically was, I think, a failed platform chip that we had last year. But yeah, Snapdragon 8 Generation 2, it comes with baseline 256 gigabytes of storage, the big 200 megapixel camera. It is still the only premium flagship phone that you can get a stylus with. And I'm really surprised more people don't attack that part of the market because there's really a big gap there. But hey, whatever. Samsung's going to keep owning it, keep making fantastic phones. And yeah, we'll see what happens. They try to stay competitive, but in the US, Apple is definitely king. And globally, if things keep up the way they're going, they might be king soon. But for right now, globally, Samsung still has a 1% market share over Apple. So we'll see what happens. But that's all I got in this video. Just wanted to kind of have some food for thought discussion with this and talk about it because it's interesting. I find it interesting. I mean, I was looking at it and I would have thought this was number 2 or number 3, not number 5. I mean, you could look at a lot of their phones and you say, okay, that's maybe number 5, number 6, number 7. But nope, iPhone 14 Pro Max number 1. I think it was iPhone 14 Pro number 2, iPhone 14. 14 was either number 2 or number 3. I don't have the picture in front of me right now. And then the iPhone 13 was a big surprise for me. I thought that the S23 Ultra would at least sell more phones than the iPhone 13. But apparently not. But hey, expensive. I mean, the economy is not great right now. Prices on these things are expensive. So yeah, if you can get an iPhone 13 for like $700, that's going to make a lot more sense for most people than spending $1,199 on one of these. But hey, surprisingly enough, the S23 Ultra sells more than the S23 Plus and the S23. So it seems like people really like this. It's the best flagship phone that Samsung has had in quite a long time. It's definitely sold more than the S22 Ultra during the same point in time. So, hey, a lot of great things going on here when it comes to smartphones. And that's pretty much all I got for this one. So that's all I've got. If you have any questions or comments, please, of course, go down in the comments section. I will do my best to get back with you. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like and the subscribe button and the little notification bell if you want updates when new videos come out. And as always, thanks for being here. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you guys next time.